Commander June Park watched the alien ship approach Earth's orbital station. This was humanity's first meeting with the Galactic Confederation. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm. Next to him, Lieutenant Hana Kim stood straight and tall. "They're almost here," Hana whispered. The docking bay doors opened. Strange beings walked out, tall creatures with blue-green skin that sparkled under the lights. They had 4 eyes that blinked in patterns and moved with perfect order. The alien leader stepped forward. "I am High Commander Vreet of the Mithrin people. We welcome Earth to the galactic community." June bowed slightly. "Commander June Park of Earth's United Defense Force. We are honored." The next few days were busy. The aliens showed amazing technology and shared stories of many worlds. They were polite but serious. They never laughed or smiled. "They're like robots," Jin Kang, a sergeant, said during mealtime. "Do they ever have fun?" On the 4th day, the Confederation suggested military exercises. They wanted to see how humans fought. In the large training area, teams from both species prepared for a capture-the-flag exercise. The aliens moved in perfect silence, hand signals, guiding their teams. Squad leader Day Lee led his human team through the mock battlefield. They crawled through fake ruins and ducked behind barriers. When they reached a difficult part, Sergeant Jin took a deep breath and began to sing. "March. Forward, brave soldiers, our victory awaits," and other soldiers joined in. The song grew louder as they advanced. Their movements matched the beat of the song. The alien observers stopped moving. Their 4 eyes widened. "What is happening?" asked Sub-Commander Thrix, Vreet's assistant. "Is this some kind of communication failure?" June shook his head. "No, failure. This is normal for human soldiers. You make noise during combat operations?" Vreet's voice translator couldn't hide his shock. "It's called singing," June explained. "Humans have done it in battle for thousands of years. It helps us stay brave and work together." The aliens whispered to each other in their clicking language. "This is most unusual," Vreet finally said. "In combat, stealth and silence are essential. This behavior would alert enemies to your position." "Sometimes," June agreed. "But it also scares enemies and helps us fight better." The exercise continued, but the aliens kept watching the singing humans with confusion. The human team completed their mission faster than expected, their voices rising in victory as they captured the flag. That evening, Admiral Young Choi invited the alien leaders to dinner. The walls were decorated with images from Earth's military history. Ancient Greek warriors with shields, medieval knights on horses, and modern soldiers. In many pictures, the soldiers had their mouths open in song. "These images show battle songs are part of our deepest traditions," Admiral Young explained as they ate. "Different human cultures have different songs, but all of us sing." Vreet carefully placed his eating tool down. "In the Confederation, such behavior would result in punishment. It lacks discipline." Wu Yun, the history expert, spoke up. "With respect, High Commander, human history shows otherwise. The Spartans played flutes while marching to battle. Vikings sang before attacking. Japanese samurai chanted. African warriors used drums and voices." The aliens looked uncomfortable. One of them checked a small device. "Most interesting," Vreet said without sounding interested. "Perhaps humans are more primitive than we expected." June saw Hana's face tighten with anger, but she stayed quiet. Later that night, in the human quarters, the team talked about the day. "They think we're backward," Hana said. "Did you see how they looked at us?" "Let them think what they want," Day replied. "Our way works for us." June looked out the window at the stars. Different doesn't mean wrong. Maybe someday they'll understand. The next morning, alarms rang throughout the station. Emergency lights flashed. June and his team rushed to the command center. The aliens were already there, looking at large screens, showing a star map. "We have received distress signals," Vreet announced. "The silencers have attacked 3 outer worlds." The screens showed dark, bug-like creatures swarming over defenses. They moved together like ants, perfectly organized. "The silencers are the most dangerous species we know," Thrix explained. "They share one mind. They never retreat. They never show mercy. June watched the terrible images. Have you defeated them before? Vreet's 4 eyes blinked slowly. No, we have only managed to slow them down. Admiral Young stepped forward. Then perhaps it's time for new tactics. Earth will join your fight. As the meeting ended, June heard some soldiers quietly singing an old battle song. The aliens still looked uncomfortable, but June noticed something new in their eyes. It wasn't just confusion anymore. It was curiosity. The sky darkened over the small coastal town of Millbrook, casting long shadows across the narrow streets. Sarah Mitchell stood by her kitchen window, watching the unusual clouds gathering with an uneasy feeling. Something felt different today, a tension that hung in the air like invisible electricity. For weeks, strange reports had been trickling in from neighboring towns. Unusual weather patterns, unexplained equipment failures, and a growing sense of unease among the local population. Sarah, a local marine biologist, had been tracking subtle changes in ocean currents and marine life behavior that didn't make sense. Her research notes were filled with bizarre observations. Massive schools of fish suddenly changing migration patterns, unusual temperature shifts in deep ocean zones, and marine ecosystems showing signs of rapid, unprecedented transformation. Most of her colleagues dismissed her concerns, but Sarah knew something big was coming. The town of Millbrook had always been a quiet place. Fishing boats would come and go, generations of families living simple lives connected to the sea. But lately, everything felt different. Fishermen were returning with empty nets, their faces etched with worry. Old equipment that had worked perfectly for decades began to malfunction without explanation. As evening approached, Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from her research colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez. Check the satellite data, the message read. Something's happening that we can't explain. She quickly pulled up the marine tracking systems, her eyes widening at the complex patterns emerging on the screen. The ocean was changing, not gradually, but rapidly. Something was building, a massive shift that defied current scientific understanding. Sarah could feel it in her bones, a primal sense of approaching danger that went beyond simple scientific observation. Her dog, Max, began to whimper, sensing the growing tension. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying a strange electrical charge that made the hair on Sarah's arm stand up. Neighborhood dogs started barking, a collective warning that something was wrong. Local authorities remained calm, dismissing the growing concerns as overreaction. But Sarah knew better. Her years of marine research had taught her to recognize the subtle signs of massive environmental shifts. This was different from anything she had ever witnessed before. As night fell, the first strange signals began to appear. Electronic systems across town started to malfunction. Streetlights flickered, cell phone signals became intermittent, and a low humming sound began to build from somewhere deep beneath the ocean. Sarah grabbed her research files and emergency kit. Whatever was coming, she needed to be prepared. The town around her seemed oblivious, people continuing their normal evening routines, unaware of the massive transformation about to unfold. Her computer screen showed increasingly erratic data. Ocean temperatures were shifting in ways that defied current scientific models. Something massive was happening beneath the waves. A change so profound it could reshape entire ecosystems in a matter of hours. The town of Millbrook sat quietly, nestled between rolling hills and the vast ocean. Few residents understood the potential scale of the threat building just beyond the horizon. Sarah Mitchell stood as a solitary guardian, watching and waiting, knowing that the next few hours could change everything. Lights in neighboring houses began to dim. The electrical grid seemed to pulse with an irregular rhythm. Max pressed close to Sarah's leg, sensing the growing tension. Something was coming. Something that would challenge everything humans understood about their world. Sarah's hands moved quickly, documenting every observation, every strange signal. She knew that whatever was approaching was bigger than Millbrook, bigger than her research, potentially bigger than humanity's current understanding of the planet's complex systems. The ocean seemed to hold its breath, waiting. The town of Millbrook sat silent, unaware that its quiet existence was about to be transformed forever, and at the center of it all stood Sarah Mitchell, a lone scientist witnessing the first moments of a change that would rewrite everything they knew about life on Earth. The night continued to build, tension mounting with each passing minute. Something was coming. Something massive. And nobody was prepared for what would happen next. The first rays of dawn broke through the heavy clouds, revealing a world transformed. Sarah Mitchell stood on the rocky shore, her eyes scanning the horizon where strange, pulsing lights danced beneath the water's surface. The town of Millbrook had become ground zero for something unprecedented. Military trucks rolled into town early that morning. Soldiers in protective gear moved with careful precision, setting up command posts and communication centers. Dr. James Rodriguez arrived with a team of specialized scientists, their equipment looking like something from a futuristic movie. "We need to coordinate," James told Sarah, his voice tight with tension. The marine life had gone completely silent. No fish, no marine mammals, nothing. It was as if the entire ocean had become a dead zone, except for the strange lights and unnatural movements beneath the waves. Local fishermen gathered at the edge of the military zone, watching with a mix of fear and curiosity. Old Tom, who had spent his entire life on these waters, muttered about signs he'd seen for weeks. "Something's not right," he kept saying, his weathered hands shaking slightly. The first contact happened just after noon. A massive energy pulse erupted from the ocean, sending electronic equipment into chaos. Computers flickered, communication devices went dead, and for a moment, everything stood still. The military personnel looked at each other with growing concern. Sarah's research became critical. Her years of marine study provided insights that the military experts couldn't comprehend. She showed them patterns in the ocean's behavior, strange electromagnetic signals that suggested something intelligent was organizing beneath the waves. Helicopters circled overhead, their rotors cutting through the thick, charged atmosphere. Specialized underwater drones were deployed, their cameras capturing glimpses of something that defied explanation. Shapes moved in the depths, not fish, not any known marine creature, but something entirely different. The town became a fortress. Residents were evacuated to safe zones. Military personnel established a perimeter. James and Sarah worked side by side, trying to understand the approaching threat. Their computer screens showed impossible data, massive energy signatures, complex movement patterns that suggested a level of organization beyond human comprehension. By evening, the first direct contact occurred. A massive energy wave burst from the ocean, creating a dome of blue-green light that covered Millbrook. The military's defensive systems engaged, missiles and advanced weaponry preparing for what might come. Sarah watched in awe as the first of the unknown entities began to take shape. They weren't aliens in the traditional sense, more like living energy, complex systems that moved with purpose and intelligence. The ocean itself seemed to be transforming, becoming something alive and thinking. "It's not an invasion," Sarah whispered to James. "It's something else entirely. They're trying to communicate." Military commanders saw things differently. Weapons were primed, defensive systems activated. The tension was so thick it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Soldiers stood ready, their hands on triggers, watching the strange lights and movements. Local residents who remained watched from a distance, their faces a mix of terror and fascination. Old Tom continued to mutter about signs and warnings, his lifetime of ocean experience telling him something profound was happening. The first attempt at communication came as a massive pulse of energy. Electronic systems across the military base went haywire. Computers displayed complex patterns, mathematical equations that seemed to pulse with life. Sarah recognized elements of marine communication, but far more advanced than anything humans had ever understood. James grabbed Sarah's arm. "Do you see this?" he asked, pointing to the rapidly changing data. The unknown entities were trying to establish contact, using a language of energy and mathematical precision that challenged everything humans knew about communication. As night fell, the battle lines were drawn. Not a battle of weapons, but a battle of understanding. The military prepared for conflict, while Sarah and James worked to find a way to communicate with the unknown force that had emerged from the ocean. Millbrook had become the center of something unprecedented, a potential first contact that would change human understanding forever. And at the heart of it all stood Sarah Mitchell, a marine biologist who had always known the ocean held secrets beyond human imagination. The night promised to reveal everything, or destroy everything they knew. The research facility hummed with intense energy. Sarah Mitchell stood before a massive screen, her fingers tracing the complex patterns emerging from their latest data analysis. Something extraordinary was happening, and she knew they were on the edge of the biggest scientific discovery in human history. The unknown ocean entities had been communicating through mathematical sequences that defied traditional scientific understanding. Every computer in the facility worked overtime, trying to decode the intricate messages. Dr. James Rodriguez had not slept for days, his eyes burning with determination. "Look at this," James said, pointing to a series of equations that seemed to pulse with living energy. The mathematical patterns were unlike anything they had ever seen, complex, dynamic, changing with each passing moment. It was as if the ocean itself was speaking a language of pure information. Military scientists watched with a mix of fear and fascination. The strange energy forms that had emerged from the ocean were not invaders in the traditional sense. They appeared to be some kind of advanced intelligence, communicating through patterns of energy and mathematical complexity. Sarah's breakthrough came unexpectedly. While analyzing a particularly complex sequence, she noticed something remarkable. The patterns weren't random. They were a form of communication more advanced than any human language. Each mathematical sequence carried layers of meaning, like a complex biological code. The town of Millbrook had been transformed into a high-security research zone. Military tents surrounded advanced scientific equipment, with researchers working around the clock. Local residents watched from a distance, their lives completely changed by the mysterious ocean event. Old fishermen like Tom brought valuable insights. They spoke of strange ocean behaviors they had witnessed over decades, subtle changes that scientists had previously ignored. Now, those small observations were becoming crucial pieces of a much larger puzzle. As days passed, the team began to understand more. The ocean entities were not trying to invade or destroy. They were attempting to communicate, to share something fundamental about the nature of life, energy, and existence. Their communication was so advanced it challenged everything humans understood about intelligence. Sarah discovered that the entities seemed to view the entire ocean as a single, living system. They communicated through complex energy patterns that moved like living information, changing and adapting with each interaction. It was a form of communication that was simultaneously mathematical, biological, and something entirely new. The military grew increasingly nervous. Some commanders wanted to use force to treat the unknown entities as a potential threat. But Sarah and James argued passionately that this was a moment of unprecedented scientific opportunity. These entities represented a completely new form of intelligent life. Specialized equipment captured incredible data. The ocean's energy patterns showed signs of a complex, interconnected intelligence that spread across entire marine ecosystems. It was as if the ocean itself was a massive living brain, with these entities serving as its neural network. Dr. Rodriguez's team developed new translation algorithms, attempting to understand the complex communication patterns. Each breakthrough brought more questions than answers. The ocean entities seemed to be sharing information about planetary systems, environmental dynamics, and forms of intelligence humans had never imagined. Sarah worked tirelessly, connecting patterns from her years of marine research. She realized these entities had likely been present for thousands of years, subtly influencing marine ecosystems. They were not invaders but guardians, complex intelligence systems that maintained planetary balance. The research facility became a beacon of scientific excitement. Researchers from around the world were brought in, each bringing unique perspectives. The discovery challenged everything humans understood about intelligence, communication, and the nature of life itself. As weeks passed, the communication became more refined. The ocean entities began sharing complex information about planetary systems, climate dynamics, and forms of energy transfer that human science had never conceived. It was like receiving a message from a civilization millions of years more advanced. Local residents who remained in Millbrook watched the scientific drama unfold. The military presence, the constant research activity, the strange energy pulses, everything had changed. Their small coastal town had become the center of the most significant scientific discovery in human history. Sarah Mitchell stood at the center of it all, her life's work of marine research suddenly taking on a meaning far beyond anything she could have imagined. The ocean had spoken, and humanity was finally beginning to listen. The discovery was just beginning, and nothing would ever be the same again. The sky burned with an unnatural light. Millbrook had transformed into a battlefield, unlike any in human history. Energy waves crashed against military defenses, creating a symphony of conflict that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Sarah Mitchell watched from the command center, her hands trembling slightly. The ocean entities had begun their most intense communication yet, a massive energy pulse that threatened to overwhelm human technology. Military systems flickered and died, replaced by complex mathematical patterns that danced across communication screens. Tanks and advanced weaponry stood useless. Traditional military might meant nothing against an intelligence that could manipulate energy itself. The ocean had become a living weapon, its waves moving with purpose and precision that shocked even the most experienced military commanders. Dr. James Rodriguez worked frantically at his computer, trying to understand the battle's true nature. "This isn't destruction," he shouted over the chaos. "It's some kind of complex communication, a test, maybe even a challenge." The first wave hit like a living force. Electronic systems across the entire region collapsed. Vehicles stopped working. Communication networks went silent, and for a moment everything stood frozen. The ocean entities were demonstrating their power, not to destroy, but to show the limits of human technology. Local residents who remained watched in awe. Old fishermen like Tom saw something deeper, a conflict that went beyond human understanding. The ocean had always been mysterious, but now it was revealing its true power. Military helicopters crashed, their systems completely disabled by the energy waves. Sarah noticed something remarkable. The energy pulses weren't random. They were precise, almost musical in their complexity. Each wave carried information, a language of energy that spoke volumes in milliseconds. The battle was a conversation, not a destruction. Military commanders grew desperate. Their most advanced weapons seemed like children's toys against the ocean's living intelligence. Missiles failed, energy shields collapsed, and the military's entire defensive strategy crumbled within minutes. The battle moved in waves, literal waves of energy that crashed against human defenses. Each pulse carried more information, more complexity. The ocean entities were testing humanity, measuring their technological and intellectual capabilities. Emergency systems activated across the country. Military bases went into high alert, but they were powerless against this new form of conflict. The battle was happening on a level of communication that humans could barely comprehend. Sarah and James worked together, translating the complex energy patterns. They realized the ocean entities weren't trying to destroy humanity. They were evaluating them. Each energy pulse was a question, a test of human potential and understanding. Massive energy domes formed over Millbrook, creating spectacular light shows that defied natural physics. Military personnel watched in awe as their most advanced technology became useless. The ocean had become a living, thinking entity that could manipulate energy itself. Local wildlife responded strangely. Birds flew in perfect mathematical patterns. Marine life moved with unprecedented coordination. The entire ecosystem seemed to be part of the communication, a massive living network that humans were only beginning to understand. As night fell, the battle reached its peak. Energy waves crashed against human defenses, creating a symphony of light and information. Military commanders watched helplessly as their entire understanding of conflict was rewritten in moments. Sarah discovered something extraordinary. The ocean entities were not fighting. They were communicating. Each energy pulse carried complex information about planetary systems, ecological balance, and forms of intelligence far beyond human comprehension. Dr. Rodriguez's computer began, displaying incredible data, mathematical sequences that seemed to breathe with life, complex patterns that suggested a form of intelligence that viewed the entire planet as a single, living system. The battle continued through the night. But it wasn't a battle of destruction. It was a battle of understanding. The ocean entities were challenging humanity, showing them the limits of their technological and intellectual capabilities. As dawn approached, something changed. The energy, waves began to soften, becoming more refined. It was as if the ocean was waiting for a response, hoping that humans might finally begin to understand. Millbrook stood transformed. The small coastal town had become the center of the most extraordinary conflict in human history, a symphony of energy, intelligence, and possibility that would change everything forever. The first light of morning revealed a world that would never be the same again.